Oh, hey. Welcome back to Hopper's Hot Rods. You caught me in the middle of a little rehearsal. I was working on a classical guitar piece from an American composer named Robert Clark Sejar. He was born in May of 1945. People more popularly know him as Bob Seger. He had a song called Feel Like a Number, and I just find it such a good song. But that's not why you're here. You didn't come to hear me wax moronic about classic rock. We're back on the van. We'll be addressing the transmission. We will be making some progress. We will be tracking down some parts, hopefully, and bouncing around the list a little bit. It won't be linear, but we'll have some progress. We're going to be removing the shift linkage. So I'm going to need what? Just a pair of pliers. Oh, shit, maybe not. Maybe a hand. All right, the washer. And we'll be making sure that this position is in fact park. I'm going to do that by attaching the drive shaft. So, this is not a complicated thing to remove, but I have to remove a weld from here, and I think it'll be easier to do down here. So let's get a grinder and get that started. All right, here's what's so great about making YouTube videos is that I generally have a reference of how things go. This washer, this spring, I can always just go back and watch my own stupid video and see how this thing went together. Because once I take it apart, God knows if I'll ever get it back together. All right, we got this put back together here. Now I've just got to try to get this to where it will break free and slide back and forth on this rod here. We can make some adjustments. All right, let's get a grinder. Okay, this is something that you can help me with here. I'm pretty sure that the position I have the transmission in was park, but we can check that really easily. I'll just put the drive shaft in and try to turn it, and if it clicks in either direction, then I'm in park. If it doesn't, I'll be wrong. So let's just jam this thing in. Gently jam this thing in here. Don't force it. Just gently work it in and be lining itself up nicely. There we go. Okay. Now, that's it. We are in park. So I can at least hold your tongue just correctly. Now then, we'll go this way. Even though before we were over here, we're definitely going to go this way. Let's have a try. I mean, I can only be 100% wrong. I'll either be exactly right or 100% wrong. I mean, those are the options, I think. Put the bushing in there. All right, here we go. I've got one of those Star-Lord 12% of a plans here. What I'm gonna do is, oh, it's diabolically simple. I don't know why I did not think of it before. Oh, because it's not the correct way to do it, that's right. I'm going to remove our cable tie. I was really overthinking this. You know, Locar is a company that makes a wonderful system to switch the linkage here to a cable system, and it's just really top-notch stuff. But it costs what they call it costs money. That's right. It's one of those expensive rich guy chip foose kind of builder deals. So we're in park, shifter's in park. All I'm gonna do is make sure this pivots, which it does. It's got a locking nut, and instead of just cranking the shit out of it, which is kind of how it was designed, I'm just gonna put a screw clamp in front of it, a screw clamp behind it, and if I need to adjust it, it shouldn't be too hard to adjust. And if I really need to change it, I'll be able to tell if it's in between clicks. I'll need to make this bar a little longer or change the angle on it. But this should get me out of park and into reverse and into enough of a drive gear to get this thing in all kinds of mischief. So that's what we're going to try. And if you want to change a 4L60 in place of a 700R4, this is the way you can do it. On this one, and I don't know if it's true on all of them, this shaft was a little longer, so this went this way a little bit more, but instead of this being on this side of the linkage, it's just now on this side, and everything lines up pretty much as good as it did before, which wasn't great, but it's just a big long rod anyway. I don't know why they didn't thread the end of this rod and thread this adjuster, and you could adjust it forward and backwards, dial it in. Well, because it came from the factory adjusted correctly, that's why. They don't need me messing with it. Interesting about the 4L60, 4L65, there's a 4L70, and then there's the 4L80, which is a really good transmission. It's very strong. It's what people like to put in. It's what they put in trucks. The torque converters are very expensive. They're expensive to build, but they're also really strong, and they're dimensionally a lot bigger. But the E we've already discussed is for electronic, and the 60, the 65, the 70, the 80 designates the torque that they're designed to handle. The 4L60 is supposed to be a maximum of 600 foot-pounds of torque, 70, 700, 80, 800 foot-pounds of torque, etc. I'll just bend those down. No, I'm going to move that out of the way this way. Now, throw the pin on that, and we are good on the transmission linkage. Let's see if I can get that on. And we will be on to the next project, which will be, drum roll, the transmission cooler lines. One of those pain in the ass but very important things that you have to have to keep your transmission alive for a long time. There's also going to be the matter of somewhere back here, there's an electronic sensor for a speedometer, and that's going to do it for the transmission once that's in. Oh, and the dipstick tube, which also goes on this side. Let's address that. Okay, welcome to the land of transmission cooling hoses and dipstick tubes. The dipstick tube goes into a grommet right here, which you cannot see. And there's a bolt up here that kind of holds it in place. It's this craziest design because the fluid level is generally higher than the grommet here for the dipstick tube. Why it's not some sort of seal, or why they didn't integrate a tube up to the level of the fluid so if this seal ever wore out it wouldn't leak, but that's not how they did it. These are the transmission cooler lines. I just looped them together. So we have to connect one of these to one of these, and then the other one to the other one, and that will circulate transmission fluid to the front of the vehicle where it will cool off. This protects the electronic control cable. It's a big modular plug here, and the wiring for that is yet to come. First we have to figure these out, and the dipstick tube. And I was thinking, you know, if you behave yourself, if you feel you've earned it, you could ride with me to the salvage yard where we can go hunting for these fittings and a couple of pieces of line to connect here, and the dipstick tube, whatever else is on the list of things that we need. Yeah, come with me, won't you? It'll be fun. It'll be great. Well, this is lucky. We have found the Chevy Express, and it's amazingly complete, including the dipstick tube for the oil and the transmission, and the fill tube. We're going to get all that. It's a beautiful day here at the salvage yard. Just a bit rainy. No problem. Let's get cracking. Right, here we go. All right, here's what we got. This is my score from going to the salvage yards. But this is not this unique tool here is what comes with the garbage disposal to help you install it under the sink, but already did that part. Okay. I got a throttle cable, and I got it out without mangling it up amazingly. I think it'll be long enough, as you saw in the video, if I put these up in the correct context. I found a Chevrolet Express van, which is the style that's newer than this, and it's got the same style throttle body as the one I'm dealing with. I haven't checked the gas pedal on this thing, but the way it attached to the gas pedal on the Express van, it was just a hole in a piece of metal. So I can get a washer the right size and weld it onto there. I can make an extension. As long as we have the right amount of throw to go from 0 to full throttle, shouldn't be a problem. So we'll see what happens there. Throttle cable done. Well, throttle cable found. Kind of far off from done. Next thing was, well, firstly, this I don't understand. This piece of cast iron that weighs about 5 pounds was the bracket mounted to the engine that the dipstick tube and oil fill was mounted to. This is a substantial piece of steel. I don't know why it couldn't have been just stamped out of a little piece of, like the rest of it is made out of, which is a much lighter weight. It just seems like a lot of, to cast you have to have a mold, and it's a cast piece pretty obviously. It just seems like a lot of extra weight and expense when they could have just stamped out a complementary piece out of thin steel, because the rest of it is made out of this thinner gauge steel, so it's obviously substantial enough to hold the tubes in place. Just, I don't know, no idea. Some engineer who, I don't know, I don't get it. These dipsticks are comically long. They are designed to go, from under the hood all the way to the base of the transmission for this one anyway. And it's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish feet long. Yeah, because it's almost as tall as I am. And that's kind of a crazy length for a dipstick. But there's a transmission dipstick. And we have the transmission dipstick tube, which everything separated pretty much here is just like a crazy straw. Like it has to go through all kinds of bends and twists to get from under the hood all the way to the transmission. Again, it seems like it could have made a simpler path than all this, but I'm not an engineer. I'm just going to try to make this work. I cleaned it up a lot in the salvage yard. It was so nasty, but I'm going to degrease it. I'll hit it with a wire wheel where necessarily. Anyway, probably not. Probably won't do any of that. Probably just wipe it down and install it, but it's not too bad as it is. Probably have to make its own bracket because the accessories are different. Now the oil dipstick was broken. The tube itself was broken. So there may be some welding involved in putting this one back together. Not the end of the world. The main thing is to make sure that it protrudes enough to get an accurate reading. Oh, steady hands, steady hands. Perhaps not. The main thing is that we get an accurate reading here. It's all twisted up, and I'm assuming that's to help it feed through this thing easily. You can see where it's like just broken, just metal fatigue right there at the at this bracket. So I'll line it up, I'll clean it up, I'll tack weld it in place. It doesn't need to be hermetically sealed per se. If it leaks a tiny bit of exhaust gases out of that, it's not going to be the end of the world. It'll be very minor, if at all. So, not the end of the world. We'll get that going. This is the oil dipstick, and lastly of things that I needed was this gizmo here, and the other two dipstick tubes mounted to this bracket, and this nicely goes to the valve cover and makes it to where you can add engine oil almost remotely without having to be right on the engine. This is a nice extension. So you stick a funnel in this and fill your engine with oil. We're going to try to make that work also, instead of having a funnel with a hose to try to get to it. The thing about the van is it's just a little tight to get to that stuff. So maybe make it kind of luxurious that way. We will see. Now the bonus here, the bonus thing that we found, weighs a ton, is this. This bag full of screws. Anytime I go to a salvage yard, I always take a handful of Ziploc bags, rags, some 409 to keep up with stuff. You don't think you will, but the next thing you know, you've got a bunch of screws in your socket set in the bottom of the tool bag. And if you're getting these and you're getting those, you can keep them separate. It's just nice, you know. And it doesn't take up a lot of room. And if it starts raining on you, which it did, you can use them for, waterproofing things. These are complete LS engine coils. And these are the kind that people like to get. They have these little fins on there for heat dissipation, and they're the truck style, and they're complete. They're not all busted up. There's a little bit of corrosion on one of them, but good find. We got to have ignition, and this is just a good thing to have as a separate set of these. So I got a whole set of those, and it looked like a lot of mileage on that engine, but you know, these are the kind of part that either work or don't. They don't kind of work. Usually they don't just kind of make a weak spark. They either make a spark or they don't make a spark. All right, let's go into the van and assess our next thing here. Okay, there's really no point in prevaricating about the bush. We might as well try to get this dipstick tube. The bottom of it needs to go right here. The top of it needs to go out the front of the van. So we'll see if we can gently jam this thing in here. And I think it'll end up sitting over here. So let me see if I can remove this bolt here. That was just holding on this ground strap. I think just, like, that's not important. Fuel hoses will go into the left side of those. They're not connected right now. So we need to shove it up here. That feels like progress. Oh, I hear something breaking. It sounds like yeah, all right. Now then. All right. Beautiful. Wonderful. Great. Yeah, that's definitely up there. It's not. Is it anywhere near what it's? Oh no, it's hitting the glove box. Well, let's try this again. Go this way. Oh, maybe I can go right next to the exhaust right here. Aha. Now I can actually see where it's going. This isn't bad at all. This isn't bad at all. Which means it's about to all come crashing down, but let's see here. That looks pretty much close. Might be jinxing myself, but it's actually in there. All right, let's go up to the front and see if we see anything up there that needs to be completely rearranged. So, for today's completion of the dipstick tube, it comes all the way to the radiator. I mean, it comes almost all the way out to where it would hit the hood, but it goes all the way back to the transmission. I got the dipstick stuck in here. I will zip tie it to the AC line and get the bracket back there to line up. I'm not sure if you can even see any of that, but yeah, you can kind of see it. Where it's wiggling, that's where the bracket will be to the back of the engine head. And I'll get that lined up, zip tie that there, and we'll be able to check the transmission fluid. And oil dipstick will be next. After we do the throttle cable. Throttle cable is going to attach here. Got a round thing at the end. And the stock one has this on the end. So that's not going to work. And it goes into the firewall right here behind all this undercoating and crud. Some kind of sealant. So let's go on the inside and have a look. Come on, let's take a look. There we are. Now, that's it right there. And it doesn't look like it's going to be too very different than what the new one is. That looks pretty familiar. So it's just a round hole at the end of a rod, and it goes through the firewall. So I'll get this out and we'll compare them to the, we'll compare them. That's what we'll do. All right, I'm done for the day. I'm burnt on this project for right now. I got to make the throttle bracket. I got other stuff to do, but I'm also gonna take a nap and eat a pizza. I don't know. We went to the salvage yard. It occurs to me, one of the best parts about going to a salvage yard is, when you're a kid and you go to the store and whatever adult says, don't touch that, don't touch that, don't touch anything. At a salvage yard, you can touch everything. What are you gonna do, break it? Everything there's already broken. I mean, there's a lot of good parts, but you can walk on the cars. Nobody cares. It's so nice. We'll get back at this thing in just a few hours. Thank you for watching.